Hey everybody, welcome to Eye of Soul Radio. I am Psychic Medium Jaime, and today I am talking about awakening versus the word awareness. Now, this came up not that long ago, and I know I've always had, I don't want to say an issue, but what hasn't resonated with me is the term awakening. I'm having an awakening, or people are always posting about we're all awakening now and the veil is thin. And I always had a problem for myself personally of being able to relate to that. I'm like, what awakening? Like I just woke up from a nap or just rose from slumber. That's how I would use the word awakening. So I want to kind of do more research and see why is such a widely used word? Because for me, in my experience and my perspective, I became aware. I wasn't awakening to anything. And yes, seeing spirit at age 5, maybe that's where that differs for me because I had that connection at such a young age. But I was becoming more and more aware. I wasn't awakening more and more. And I thought, you know what, this is going to be a great show to talk about this and see, where everyone else's perspectives are as well, because it's an open forum and dialogue is always welcome. But for me, it is, are we just becoming more aware of what's around us? Or are we awakening to our spiritual self, right? Now, being aware of what's around us, well, that's primarily tapping into our psychic senses initially. Even feeling energies come through, we have to know the basic principles of our psychic abilities in order to continue furthering that connection with past loved ones, family, friends, any energy that wants to come through. But where did the term spiritual awakening come from? And honestly, I've done a lot of research to find that answer, and it's everywhere, but no one fully puts any hey, that was me that put that out there 50 years ago. We've just been using it, I think, loosely, right? And how does it how does it show itself being different than being more aware of the unseen around us? So that's what I'm talking about today. Being, I've awoken versus I have become more aware of my surroundings. Now, for me, I think of it this way. Aren't we all spiritual beings, right? Having the human experience. So wouldn't that mean that we're just more aware of what's going on around us? Food for thought, right? The thing I want to do is I want to get this out of the way. Let's define the two words. So I looked on Google and I hit the dictionary definition. So we're going to talk about awakening. Dictionary definition. There's 3 of them that I put for today. I didn't go into any of the crazy stuff. And the awakening word definition, the act of waking from sleep. Well, that's always how I thought of that word. So that's why I think it never really resonated with me at that level. An act or a movement of becoming suddenly aware of something. Okay, there's that word, aware, in the definition of awakening. Coming into existence or awareness. There's that word again, right? So the more I started doing that, the more this just I kept opening books, opening up more research, connecting more with my spirit team. So then I wanted to look at see, they put those words in there of like words that are similar to it or the meaning of it. And similar words were arousal, right? And so it is that awakening, coming and kind of bringing ourselves back into that space. We won't go into the other side of it, but there is also that type of, arousal and that awakening. Okay. Also, it is inspiration, birth, and rebirth. Okay, I get that. the birth, rebirth, reconnection, the awakening to the spirit side of ourselves, our spiritual journey. All right. So then I looked up awareness, knowledge or perception of a situation or fact. Okay. So now I have knowledge of what's happening around me. I've taken classes in order to understand what's been around me since a young age. So now I've become more aware. I'm not awakened. Was I awakened at 5? That's the question. It also is concern about and well-informed interest in a particular situation or development while developing my psychic gifts, developing my mediumship abilities. That was awareness. And then I pulled some of the words out from that. It was similar words, consciousness. Now this got me going. Okay, yeah, I agree with that for the awareness. Realization, perception, cognizance, and acknowledgement. Well, that right there solidified my feeling of the difference between awakening and that term and how it's very loosely used in our community as opposed to opening to the awareness of, right? Interesting. And this all started this train, actually, toot, toot, here we go. No, I had a chain reaction happening because as I was working on the show, they were also giving me a new course that we're going to be offering, sessions that we can do with clients. And it's going to trip you when I tell you the name of it here pretty soon. So, you know what? I wanted to go through and give you guys some examples of what's out there on the internet today that is talking about in a spiritual awakening kind of definition. So a few things that I pulled off. Here are what just a few examples that call a awakening, a spiritual awakening, is called to a higher consciousness. Well, consciousness is also in the definition of awareness. So then I started putting that together. And a deeper mental awareness. There's that word again. The process of a spiritual awakening brings about personal transformation and a shift in one's worldview. I agree with that. But I also can become more aware of this process. When someone goes through a spiritual awakening, they experience a shift in their mental framework. Absolutely. But I also make a shift in the way I'm driving based on my awareness and my perception of where I'm going and the traffic surrounding. I have a shift in my perception when a spirit comes in and I go from the human form, the physical form, now to that spiritual form, to that exterior energy coming in, right? So I'm not awakening to that. The awakening for me is where I think a lot of us use it when it's time for us to give a title, because we're humans. So we need to have names. We need to have titles. We have to have stuff that's tangible. And when we say I'm having the spiritual awakening, okay, many times have you said that? Or are you on year 5 of your spiritual awakening, your spiritual journey? Well, no, now you're just on the path, right? You're on that journey. So your awareness kicks in. Another one was spiritual awakening. In contrast, involves opening the heart center. I agree. You know, we are spiritually connected on that level. Being a Reiki master and into energy work, I can definitely relate to that. It's a process more closely associated with one's psychology. All right. The emotional body and the soul. So for me, it is about that mind, body, and soul connection, the alignment of it. But it's through awareness that I do this process, not because I woke up. I may wake up from time to time and have that moment of awakening and a spirit being there, but I'm aware of it. See how that starts to just kind of muddle for me? And that, again, this is for me. And I have had clients ask, like, well, what is a spiritual awakening and how am I going through it? Well, I've had some similar answers to that as well for them of what I see. And some of them resonate with that. And some of them take what works with them and then they continue on their spiritual awakening. And some say it isn't an actual awakening. It's a path of spiritual awakening. Interesting, right? So does that mean that that spirit self, our soul, that part, our higher self is finally waking up into that energy, into that momentum? Possibly, right? And it's to come to, this is what I love, a place of total awareness. Or did the spiritual awakening at age 5 for me bring me to a space of awareness in which now I live? Interesting thoughts behind all of this. So it can go by lots of names. I mean, honestly, I could have done a whole entire show on just the different ways that we call a spiritual awakening in different cultures. But it all comes back to the principle of awareness and where we're going with that. And that's where we go into that segment 1 here. The first step in growth is always the awareness of the present movement, of the present moment. followed by an impulse to change something. So a lot of times when we have activity coming in, or we have spirit coming in, or if you go to a medium or a psychic, if you will, an intuitive, and you're looking for tarot card readings or pendulum readings or oracle card readings for direction, right? Connecting with your spirit team, connecting with your higher self, not having that mediumship part where we're connecting with your loved ones. We're looking to change something in that first step, right? And that's the awareness that we feel the change coming, or we want validation of that change coming as well. So with that being said, think about that. Is it the fact that we are awakening to this moment, or is it just that we're becoming more aware of that? I don't think that when we hit that first moment and that first step in that growth of the awareness is an awakening per se. Okay. The second part is, are you having signs of intuition, right? Are we tapping into that gut center? Are you tapping into your psychic senses? And that's what that awareness is. If thoughts and objects and individuals all have energy, spiritually awoken human beings may seem more apt to connect on this energy on a regular basis. But what caused you to awaken again? Or is it just the fact that now you suddenly have become aware? And that's where I think a lot of us are, is that we are just becoming more aware of the spirit world. We get clients all the time. And you guys as listeners, I know you're texting us in here like, is the veil thinner today? Like, what is going on? Are the planets in a different alignment? Have we gone into retrograde? All of a sudden, I'm feeling this, right? And less of you are actually saying to me, I feel like I'm hitting my spiritual awakening. Yet it's still out there. But they are more and more aware of what's going on. Why? Because we are a spiritual being having the human experience. And so would it not make sense for these walls to come down and for us to be more aware of what's going on? Absolutely. Once that veil does come down, right, there are times where it is thinner. It's easier for us to communicate with spirit. Yeah, we're going to get all of that in. Now, will that trigger your own spiritual awakening? Why wouldn't it? See how that can go back and forth? Again, though, I'm going to ask you, have you awakened, or now are you just aware of what's going on? And that is what we're going to continue talking about in the next statement, is where did this term spiritual awakening come from? And how is it differing? And how are we perceiving it? And how can we work with it? I mean, that's the best part of this. So you guys, you can find me on shadesofspirit.com. I have a $75 1-hour reading, which I'm continuing through May. So you guys can just click on that button. Also, go to YouTube. Check out our Shades of Spirit YouTube. Like, subscribe, hit the bell. We've got one of us on every day. And then our shows are on there for Eye of Soul Radio and Shades of Spirit Radio from Transformation Talk Radio. We also do Sunday shows together as the four of us get together, the Fierce Four, and work together and just do some fun, crazy things when it comes down to the spirit world. So you guys check those things out, and I will see you right after this break. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Eye of Soul Radio. I am Psychic Medium Jaime. Today, talking about the word awakening versus awareness. And how does that come together in the spirit world, right? So as we talked about in segment 1, we were talking about kind of where did spiritual awakening come from? Who started this name? It's been used for a very long time. And a lot of us are using it in different aspects, right? So I'm actually hearing more and more people now awakening to that 5D energy and connecting on a very high level. Some are in that extraterrestrial, right? If you guys believe in that, what else is going out there in other planets? Awakening to that vibration, right? They're moving into these vibrations. They're connecting at these levels that a lot of us, even myself, when it gets to that degree, can't connect with at this point. Or won't connect with at this point, or don't have the belief system behind it. For me, I can say that I was truly awoken in the middle of a night by a spirit who looked to be about my age at age 5. But was that my awakening? I wouldn't say so. It was my opening my perception to the awareness of that spirit in the room, which then triggered that intrigue throughout the course of my life growing up until I hit my early 20s and thought, I need some help. I need to understand what it is I'm seeing and how to work with it. But again, I never, ever used the word awakening. And yet a lot of us do. And that's great if that's how you feel. But I want you guys to open your mind even further to the act of awareness and perception when it comes down to it. We all have a sixth sense. We all are psychic. So would it not make sense that we are just opening our awareness to the energies around us? Now, this past year and a half with the pandemic and everything else going on in the world, we have felt it globally. When you have such a universal consciousness going into a subconscious level, we're being shut down by, having to stay at home and follow the rules and regulations and fear. All of a sudden, that veil does start to thin. Fear is a very strong emotion. Love trumps fear, of course, but at the same time, that fear starts to trigger things in us. So I'm having more people awaken or become more aware. Which one is it? Maybe it's a fusion of both. But all of a sudden, when they are in that space and then they're in their homes and all of a sudden activities kicking up and it's stuff that they could have dismissed because they were so busy in their regular lives before, it doesn't mean necessarily that they've had a spiritual awakening in that respect. It could just very well mean that they are just more aware because they have to actually slow down and connect. And whether they're doing it on a conscious or subconscious level, that's what's different, right? So with that being said, how does this differ from being more aware of the unseen world around you? I feel that this is one of the most overused terms in spirituality because we don't know how else to define it, because the spiritual side of it and the invisible people are two different things, right? It's kind of interesting to think about that way. So aren't we that spiritual being having the human experience? Absolutely. Are we humans trying to figure out the spiritual experience? Absolutely. This is where it gets confusing. This is where a lot of you start searching for teachers to be able to help you manipulate that energy, understand where it's coming from, and being more aware of what's around us at the same part. So some ways that we can work with that and that interconnection is to be able to meditate and to get outside and to connect, right? It's also for us to find joy in the things that we do. When we raise that vibration, we move into such a different position, a different spot. And when we start connecting with spirit and living in a space that's not fear-based, that it's actually more of that space of love and acceptance, that's huge. So if you think about that part as well, when we are coming into our space, right? And this does not take away from faith. By no means does this take away from the faith aspect of it, right? And I know I've heard people also speak of, I was awakened by a presence. Maybe it was a God presence, a Jesus presence, a Mary presence, source. And they helped me turn my life around. Well, that's awesome, right? That is an awakening, if you will. They're opening their eyes. They're coming up and out of the fog. Is that different than an awareness? In my opinion, yes. So I do use the word awakening, or I have awoken. I've moved into the space, not for what most of us use it for. And I actually had a client one time, and it was a very interesting story, is that they were heavy into drug use at probably the age 12, 13, as I recall. And they were trying to figure out what happened, because all of a sudden they had this overwhelming sense of just peace. And it actually scared them to the point of wanting to get a reading, because they could not figure out why all this turmoil and angst since age 12 from things that had happened in early childhood traumas. Why did all of a sudden they have this peace? And so we did a session. We actually did a Reiki flow session because I wanted to kind of clear out the energy and see where they were. And I took them into that kind of hypnotic, light, hypnotic, deep meditative state, and asked them to kind of go back to the time where they felt that calm, because they were living with that calm for quite some time, and it felt so uneasy, and they felt unrested, right? They could not shake this feeling, and they almost felt like something was around them all the time. And so while this person was in this state, and I took them back to the day before, when was the last time that you had used? What was going on in your mind? What was your energy? What was happening? And then all of a sudden it was amazing. It was like they took this huge breath and everything settled. And I get chills now, just like thinking of that, all of a sudden that connection, and it becomes very emotional. And yet you have to sit there and be present in that moment. And all of a sudden the voice changed, the demeanor changed. hand gestures slowed down and almost kind of just went into that, just resting on their heart space. And their breathing just became easier and easier. And I said, "What do you see now?" And they said, "I see a light." And I said, "Describe it to me." And they said, "I can't see past it." And so I took them through some more breathing exercises and relaxing more into it and starting to open up the acceptance. And this energy started coming and filling the entire room. And that's where I say it's a gift. And I'm filled with gratitude every single person I talk to and work with, because I get to experience this with them. And all of a sudden, this energy came in. And I usually use my notepads. You guys all see me writing stuff usually and doodling. And I had realized that in the process of me taking them through it, I was automatically writing, if you will. And I had pretty much my entire page filled with crosses. And as some of you know, I'm not a religious background. I don't have a religious background. It was, look and find it for yourself with my family, which I appreciate from my parents. So for me, it was more spirituality based. And in the middle of it, I was drawing the initials J and then P. And I kept just kind of doing that over and over again. And I'm like, what the hell? So I'm over here like trying not to freak myself out. So all of a sudden, the room gets like just dead. Everything is gone. And they start to kind of come up out of this themselves. And they sat straight up and looked at me dead in the eyes. And they said, "I've connected with Jesus a second time." And it floored me because the person's name started with P. I don't want to give the person's name away. So my paper was filled with crosses. And in the middle, I kept writing out J and then P. And it was that connection, that Jesus energy, that Jesus connection. So it was really crazy about that connection I had with that client and the energy just calming, right? And I will from time to time find myself writing. And I think I've only done it for 2 other clients in the years and years that I've been doing this, to where I have such a deep connection with that Jesus energy, right? And it's so intense when it comes in. And it usually fills my paper with crosses. But I know that that was my sign that we were connecting on a much higher level and allowing this individual that time and space to have that moment once again, to fully back it, to believe it, to awaken to the moment. So is it the same thing? Am I talking about the same thing? Am I just going in circles? Possibly, right? I mean, it's all about the perception. But that's when I felt that awakening had happened. And that's where I felt that connection deeper for myself as well. But it wasn't that I was also awakening with them. I was becoming more aware of a different level, a different vibration, a different energy within my space and what I know. So, it's all about how we want to take that energy. And what was interesting is that LaShawn and I were talking about this with Spirit Walker Nicole this weekend. And she's like, "Damn, I wish we had YouTube on." Because for me, I was trying to explain how I view the difference between an awakening and the awareness and how she was viewing it. And it would have made for a great topic and debate. And I could have saved it for YouTube, but I just couldn't because I didn't talk about it on the show. But we all do look at it from a different perspective. So if you are going through a moment right now where you are having a spiritual awakening, I am not discounting, discrediting, or saying that you're wrong by any means. I just want you to think about it in the terms of, have you used your abilities? Have you opened up spiritually before, or is this something brand new? Because if you've used it before, more than likely what's happening is that you are just becoming more aware. You've had more time to sit in that space. You've had more time to connect in that space and then to be able to move forward, right? So I do want you guys to think about those things. And a good way to do that sometimes is to go into an Akashic Records or a past life reading. And guess what? We do that here at Shades of Spirit. So we actually have a workshop coming up on May 15th. That's a Saturday, 11 a.m. to 1. It is spaces limited because we need to make sure we get to everybody. But we will be going into each one of your Akashic Records, and we're going to be looking to see what we need to know right now. Now, remember, when that comes down to that Akashic Records, that is an eye-opening experience of being able to get into that energy. And we're going to see what it is that you have created thus far, what ideas that you have had now that have now started to go into that thought form, which now is caused itself to have its own Akashic records, and how we can steer you into that right direction and be able to help progress where it is that you want to go for the second half of this year. That workshop is $40. Everyone gets their own little reading. We sit with one another and we share in those experiences. We learn from one another. And from time to time, we dip into a past life in order to clear any type of ancestral karmic energy out in order to move forward. So you can do that on Shades of Spirit LLC on Facebook. You can also message us at 858 684 7575. Send me a text if you want to join or you want more information for it. And I will see you right after this break. Hey, everybody, welcome back to Eye of Soul Radio. I am Psychic Medium Jaime. And, sometimes spirit blows my mind, right? So we're talking about awareness versus awakening, awakening versus awareness, whichever way you want to put it. And to me, more of this is about the awareness aspect of it, being awoken to something, being able to look around and have that connection is definitely different from my perspective. Now, what was interesting is that I'm telling the story, right, of one of my clients. And we were having a little malfunction that none of you would know about with the equipment and, and the connection part. But Jacob, our producer, is so fabulous that he's able just to make this go flawless. But while we were on break, I'm listening to my team. And, I don't share the names of the clients of my stories unless I know I have their permission. And I don't always remember all my clients' names because this was also quite some time ago, early in my Reiki career, if you will, and doing all of this. And so I was pretty sure that I knew the name of this person, but I just could not totally connect it, nor did it really matter, but it actually was bothering me during that segment. And so I kept thinking, well, what the hell? And, I still think that the name starts with P, but I actually asked Jacob on break and I said, I said, you don't have a P in your name, do you? And and your answer was?
Yes, I do. My second middle name.
His second middle name. And then I got the chills, and then I got this whole weirdy, spirity thing, because apparently now nothing, as you guys saw last night, is off the table. When Spirit Walker Nicole's name, again, I'll show you guys this. Those of you that didn't see it, tune into last night's show. It was based on the energy of, oh my God, what the hell did we do the show on yesterday, Jacob? Oh, it was our demon show. Yep. Duh. This is what I get for trying to plan my shows too far out, you guys. Demons, and we were talking about angels, and people use that energy too loosely, right? And this, for Spirit Walker Nicole, who works in the angelic realm, came flying off of the nice, display I have back here. And so it was that same feeling, like we don't get to have a regular show anymore is what we decided. But the fact that they had me ask him was because we're moving into this next segment of seeing the signs and synchronicities and connection and feeling that moment. And so my question for you, Jacob, is were you into the spirity stuff before you ended up doing our show?
Yeah, so I didn't grow up with that in my household at all, but I found myself connected to Jesus when I was in college, and so that was where I kind of started my spiritual, connection and all of that. That was before this show, obviously. That was like 6 years ago, so learning a lot now.
There are no coincidences, you guys, and that's the literally what I have on my next thing says seeing signs, coming into contact with like-minded people, sharing in the same experience. I freaking have the chills right now because that Jesus energy, like I said, does not come in for most people. It's very few people. So now I have to ask, because of my working with other clients before and this being such a small handful, do you mind sharing a little bit of the experience that you had that connection for you?
Yeah, no problem. So I kind of got introduced to it when I was in middle school, but it was really I would say like 6 to 10 years of trying to understand what it meant for me and kind of going in and out of connecting with it and then kind of being distant from it for a while. But I do remember there was one specific morning between my freshman and sophomore year of college where I woke up and it was just overwhelming, actually. And from that day, it kind of changed everything for me. I woke up and felt this different thing that I'd never felt before. And then from that, it just changed my life, and I've been connected ever since, honestly.
Such a freaking similar story to
Yeah.
the one with the client I had 5, 6 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, we're just speechless. This is good radio. This is good radio. No dead air. Literally, I am sitting here kind of with my mouth open because it's like same type of thing. It was that connection and that sleep and waking up in that moment and having it change that direction of life forever as we know it and changing lives. And, I have a feeling that there's things like, we don't know each other too well because, you're still new with working with us. But like, I do feel for you that you're realizing that this is happening because there's a more of a purpose for you to go and help others and to work with them on different levels. Does that make sense?
I would say definitely yes.
Oh my God, I'm loving where you're going. Well, see, and I guess if you're the producer, I don't need permission to move into your energy because it's just going to happen regardless.
Absolutely.
So you guys like, do you feel okay then for you? Do you feel that you've had an awakening of sorts that has brought you to more of an awareness level?
Yeah, and I think that that started it all. And then in college, I found some mentors in a community that surrounded me and taught me a lot more about that. And so uh, it's just become who I am now versus kind of something I was dipping my toes into.
Oh my God, I love that. I cannot get rid of the chills. So you guys realizing all of this is happening more and more and realizing that it can take us to a different level and a different connection and realizing that our dreams can come true. I mean, go back to last week on Shades of Spirit when we talk about the value of words and the energy that it has behind each word and the way that we do self-sabotage ourselves. But if we allow ourselves to move into this awareness, into that connection, and finding the right people and bringing those people into our tribe. Now, maybe it's not a tribe that sticks with us. I've had many tribes in my life, and I know it's because I'm supposed to learn things from each one to further that. And it's using our intuition as that guide on that journey, right? So I think, actually, I don't have to think. I know because literally, and I didn't want to write all the crosses, but you guys, I'm writing J, and then I kept filling in the P. I kept filling in the P, kept filling in the P as I was sitting here and circling it. And then when we hit the break, they were like, you need to ask this question. So I know Spirit's not letting it go, but I want us to think about that. Are we connecting to our inner awakening to the spirit connections, or did we just become aware of all of the synchronicities like today? It was an awareness part of it, that moment, Jacob, I really think that you connected with that energy and was awakened to the possibilities, but you were already aware previously by dipping your toe in and kind of feeling it out. And that moment hits you like a ton of bricks to where it's changed your life. It's moving you in that direction. And that's what's so intriguing about what we do on the spiritual side of it and how we make these connections. And, there's no doubt in my mind that your awareness is going to continue taking you to be into that step of healing. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely. And that's kind
Uh,
of been the trend that I've noticed over the last couple of years is that is kind of the direction that I've been headed, and it's constantly a growing and learning process.
So now, guys, I'm just going to blame that my hands when they activate for my Reiki is because it's really tuning into Jacob, and he's supposed to be doing more with healing people. Oh my God, that is fantastic. And speaking of healing, you guys, make sure that you connect with that space within. And that's what this last segment's going to be is understanding ways we can connect, whether we want to awaken, whether or not you find that this is just confirming your belief that this has become more of an awareness for you, how we can tap into it, how we can further it. And it also shows that we can be aware and still have a spiritual awakening coming, right? I'm not going to say that we don't. I'm not going to say that I'm not going to have a moment like that and wake up and be in a different space with the amount of energies that I connect with. I think that if I have to pick an awakening for myself before we go to break, that the awakening for me would be that day that I went out and meditated a few years ago, well, 5, 6 years ago now. And was sitting in my parents' backyard. And you guys have heard me tell the story between Shades of Spirit and here, and doing the meditation and connecting and having an archangel come down into my space was awareness, yes, but it was a moment of connection. And maybe that's where we're going with awakening. the moment of connection and opening my eyes to something different, being in that mindset and seeing this energy come in and understanding that I'm not supposed to see the physical attributes because they're an angel. And then having the name spelled out to me, even though the two letters in the middle were flipped, I was still able to remember it. And then going back and doing the research and realizing that holy cannoli, that is an actual archangel in the Bible with a direct connection to God, the Garden of Adam and Eve, the Tree of Life, and the books that he was showing me made so much sense because he was also part of a record keeper. What the heck, right? And that gives me chills. Was that a moment of awakening for me? I think that I can say that I did have a moment of awakening and understanding that I wasn't only supposed to be working in the realms of lower vibrations and the mediumship and my psychic abilities, that I was also supposed to be working in higher vibrations to heal myself and to help others connect on a different level. Who else would do that? An angel, right? For Jacob, it was Jesus coming in. So have I had an awakening experience? Absolutely. But it wasn't where it all started from. And I want you guys to think about that. It doesn't have to be the starting point for you. The awareness can absolutely be that way. With that being said, and connections, join us for our next mystical tea party. That'll be in Wildemar, California. So if you guys are anywhere in Riverside County, LA County, Orange County, San Diego County, or if you're in town and visiting some friends in this area, we have another mystical tea party that is May 15th as well. It's a Saturday. That will be at 4 p.m. We're going to have celebrity chef Nicole Moreno joining us again. So hello, girl. Thank you. It was beautiful. The food was fantastic. And then you're going to have LaShawn, the Luminous Mystic, and myself doing readings, along with Michelle Byler at Sweetwater Farms, bringing out some mystical animals for us to connect with. Those tickets are on sale at our Facebook page, Shades of Spirit LLC. Check it out. Hit me up if you're interested, and I will see you right after this break. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Eye of Soul Radio. I am Psychic Medium Jaime, and today we are discussing awakening versus awareness. And I love doing shows like this because as it transforms, right? And we were just talking at the break, that story of that client coming to me with kind of that awakening experience and that connection and how it turned their life around, that wasn't even planned. That's not in my notes. I asked Spirit to work with me on what I needed to convey in the show today. And that's what happened. And the more that we talk and the more I connect with Jacob, the more I realize that was surrounded more by his experience, but they bring in what I know, because again, we work with our spirit dictionaries in order to get the ball rolling and just to confirm, because I haven't shut it off. I just can't, they're not letting me. And Lordy knows we don't want this to not end this way, but it's confirming for him what he's been seeing and feeling, right? I'm just speaking for you.
Yes, that's correct. I mean, I haven't talked about this with someone in a while, and as you know, like you said, this wasn't in your notes. We didn't talk about this before. You didn't even know that about me, and so, yeah, pretty cool.
I love it. I'm just going to thank everybody upstairs for the connection today. So you guys can also have these connections, and you can bring back this energy to your space. And I can guarantee that most of us have had some type of awakening in our life, but it isn't what's kicked off your spiritual journey, your spiritual experiences. Okay. So I think that at the bottom line, it is about awareness sandwiched into the spiritual awakening to then further our awareness. And some ways that you can start connecting right now and start remembering your own spiritual opening, if you will. I almost like that term better, a spiritual opening, right? Because we're opening up to the possibilities out there. I guess that they probably use the awakened term, the more that I think about it, and the more of the research I've done on it, is because it is like we're coming out of a fog, right? We're humans, we're heavy, we're dense, we're in this earth-based energy, we're learning these lessons. And when we can actually come up and out of that fog, it is like a breath of fresh air. It's like we can finally stretch and feel more at peace. So I understand the background behind that, but ways that you can connect with your inner connection and becoming more awake, if you will, or to reignite the awakening process, or just being in a space of being more aware at a different level, is to try some of these tips, right? Try some of these ways to connect. So we talked earlier, meditate, right? And that's actually what kind of got me into that whole entire wormhole that we did, which was very welcomed. But definitely, and like I talked to a client today, and her way of meditating is a lot like mine, and it's active. So she puts headphones on, and actually what was so cool, and I'm just going to give her a shout out, again, we don't use names, is that she's like, I was listening to your podcast about your blueprint that you did a while ago. And it was funny because we talked about her blueprint in her reading. But for her, she goes, I think that is my way of meditating, is I like to go walk outside. She just moved jobs. Now she's by the ocean. She can connect. She throws her headphones on and takes her walk to decompress. And that is her way of connecting. So you could have some outside noise going on, because what happens is even listening to like podcasts like that, you're connecting in that zone, and that allows us to be open for other things to come through. For me, it's cooking, right? So I'm talking myself through what I want to cook, and then I'm still allowing myself to be present to spirit and that connection. Get outside. Connection outside, use Mother Earth's energy, ground yourself, center yourself. Yoga outside is great for those of you that are starting to get back out into, those type of things. You can also do that in your backyard alone to stay safe still. But connecting outside, going for a walk on the beach, putting your feet in the water, in the sand, depending where you're at. The water might be too cold. Go take a walk at the beach, right? If you're not going to be in the sand, that's okay, as long as you're connecting with that element. Find joy. What is it you like to do? And then call on your spirit team to bring that to you. Maybe you want to build your connection with your source energy, your God energy, your Jesus energy, Mother Mary, your spirit team, your angels, whoever it might be, bringing that connection in and asking them to bring you to the next level. I'm ready for the next phase, right? Laughing, singing in the car. These are all ways to connect with our own inner connection, which then puts us in the connection with our higher self. And if you guys, know anything about that energy direction, that goes straight up through all those chakras and directly to the connection of source, right? And so when we're doing this and we're putting ourselves back into alignment, we start to become more aware. Moving, volunteering, giving of our time, and knowing we're getting that energy back. It needs to be that equal exchange. So remember that. Practicing gratitude. I think that's the biggest part for me right now, is practicing gratitude and being in that grateful state of mind and being open to accepting what's coming on that higher level. Brings me to more of an awareness of what is coming in, which then snowballs for me in a positive direction. Journaling. This couldn't be any more important, right? Journaling the stuff, allowing yourself to see the path. Now you can grab your journals, and then you can connect with your spirit team and say, now take me back to the first time that I was aware, or that I had my first awakening. I don't care what the age is, but start writing it. And then ask them to show you subsequent times when this has happened. And then when it happens again in 2 days from now, write it down. You start to see that you're more than just that merely physical being, and that we are constantly evolving in spiritual form. It's just, are you ready to put the two pieces of that puzzle together? You're going to connect with your spirit team. We tell you, brush your teeth, connect in the morning, connect at night. Those of you that brush your teeth twice a day, that's the perfect time, because sometimes we get thrown off our day by a phone ringing too early in the morning. It throws off our whole day, whether it's work or it's a family or whatever it might be, or we just are running late, or we're just having a day. But we always are connecting when we brush our teeth. So having that spiritual connection, and ask for what you want. That is also going to help us bring into the space of awareness when it starts happening. Take time out each day. I don't care how you do it. Slow down and listen to the trees. Listen to the birds singing, right? Feel the warmth of the sun as it starts to come out. I know a lot of us are opening up now. It's getting warmer. Some of you still have some snow flurries, which is cracking me up right now. I'm like, what is going on with the weather? But like, we had 80-degree weather, and now we've had sprinkles today. I'll go out and stand in the sprinkles and let them hit me in the face, and get that grounding and that connection outside, and ask them to bring more of that awareness to me and allow me to be in that process, allow me to be in that moment. But these are ways that we can connect, and find people that you connect with on that level if it's time. We have workshops. We have a Release and Intentions workshop that is posted on our Facebook page as well in May. It's going to be a full moon, and it is finding your path and reconnecting on that level, and finding people to work with in these groups and get to know. That's how we build and forge these relationships with not only ourselves, but with spirit. We also have an event coming up on I believe it's the 23rd. Check it on our Facebook page. It's a paint and sip with spirit. Psychic artist Ashley and I are joining forces with Michelle at Sweetwater Farms Petting Zoo. And we are doing an event to where you get to tour and connect with the animals. It will be adult beverages along with non-alcoholic beverages as well, all responsibly done. And you guys will just get to settle into a space for a little bit. It's all outside. And then we go over to a different area, and Ashley is going to instruct us on a painting. And I'm going to be reading the paintings that you're doing. It's an awesome technique. If you can read tea leaves, they have dirty plate readings. I've done paint readings. It's a good way for us to connect and for me to see where your energy is at, what you're drawing to you, how we can bring you more aware in your space. So that is going to be on a Sunday afternoon. So you can get your tickets for that as well. Other than that, you guys, the biggest part for today is just understanding that it's a potato or is it a potato, right? And at the end of the day, is a tomato a vegetable or a fruit? It's basic stuff. I know that seems lame. And if Spirit Walker Nicole was here, I already know she's rolling her eyes and laughing at me. But that's what it is. To be awakened versus being aware. They are hand in hand. They go hand in hand. And at the same time, they are completely separate entities, but they bring us back to one important place. And that is our connection with ourselves, with our higher self, and with the spirit world, with our spirituality, with that connection and where it's taking us. And so being able to settle down into that space and listen to other people's stories. You know, we have countless shows on different topics. Find one that calls to you and listen to it. I definitely would go back to the show that we did on Shades of Spirit, that It Isn't My Time Yet, where we interviewed Lori Crow, who had actually passed and come back and then had 2 more near-death experiences. And to hear her connection and how she regained her faith. I think, she just had this profound moment when she died and came back. Find a way to connect today, and I guarantee you'll start seeing results moving in the positive direction because you're going to do it in a space of love and light for your highest and best. I'm going to leave you guys with that. I will see you next week. Stay tuned for Eye of Soul Radio on Wednesday at 5 p.m. And you guys have another fabulous weekend. Thank you. Thank you for listening in on Eye of Soul Radio on transformationtalkradio.com with me, Psychic Medium Jaime. Return here next time so you can explore more of the lower level energies, realms, or dimensions. We will go through more darker spirit stories and provide more guidance and self-growth to those who need it. For more information about me, Psychic Medium Jaime, and the Eye of Soul, visit eyeofsoulradio.com. That's eyeofsoulradio.com. Eye of Soul Radio only on transformationtalkradio.com. See you next time.